Hi, I'm John Dingle, and this is the Growth in Business podcast for Citybiz, where we talk with local and national leaders in sales, marketing, and business development. So learn about new and trusted strategies to grow your business. I'm here today with Wendy Bronfein, co-founder and chief brand officer for Curio Wellness. Welcome, Wendy, and thanks for being here.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So I thought we'd start the conversation by you taking a couple of minutes to tell us about Curio, and while you're at it, could you tell us about your role there and a brief background?
So, Curio Wellness is a vertically integrated medical cannabis operator. That means that we cultivate, we process, and we sell on the retail level medical cannabis products. We're the market leader here in the state of Maryland, and we distribute our products to well over 97% of the dispensaries in the state. We recently have gone through a rebrand and we're remodeling our own dispensary under the name Foreign Daughter. So there are now two sort of brands associated with this company. Curio Wellness, which is the wholesale side, the company that grows and manufactures medical cannabis products like flower, vapes, chews, tablets, things like that. And then Foreign Daughter, which is our retail division. Our wellness center is in Baltimore County, and we had announced in August of last year that we would be franchising that model across the country.
Oh, fantastic. So what percentage now is company owned as opposed to franchise, or did you just start the franchising operation?
We just started. So we've received well over 600 applications for
Wow.
franchises in several states across the country. And we're going through the first rounds of applicants to make selection for our first franchisees. Part of the big draw of this business is that we've created a $30 million investment fund, which allows us to provide most of the capital needed to open a store to a prospective franchisee. And in an industry that looks to expand independent ownership and diversity, one of the hardest measures to achieve that is access to capital. So we felt that through the creation of this fund, we would be able to better facilitate that expansion of independent ownership and diverse ownership across the country.
That's great. That's awesome. Congratulations, by the way. Wow, that's a great number so far. Well, tell us a little bit about your role and your background.
So my role, I serve as Chief Brand Officer and Director of Public Policy. So I am at the center of the Curio Wellness and the Foreign Daughter brands, how those brands were built and how those built brands are sustained, as well as dealing with a lot of the external communications of the company, internal communications within the company, and all of our public policy work. As a side gig, um, I'm chair of the National Medicinal Cannabis Coalition. So that's where we do a lot of work on the federal level, advocating for policy changes that allow for cannabis businesses to function like normal businesses. Many people aren't aware that we are hindered by constraints around banking and access to capital, heavy taxation. And so those are things that we're trying to correct, which will better facilitate the expansion of the industry at large. I also deal a lot with public policy on the state level where we operate.
Gotcha. Great. Well, thanks for sharing that. And thanks for being here. Yeah. So as you know, we want to talk about growth today. So I'd like to start off by asking you, what has been your greatest strategy around growth of your company so far?
So we really focused on kind of harnessing our facilities and our processes and getting them to a place that they were fully scalable and repeatable. And so what I mean by that is we grow. Right now we grow in a 150,000 square foot facility. Our manufacturing is in a 34,000 square foot facility, and then we have our retail. And in all those spaces, there is a lot of infrastructure and there's a lot of process to what we do. And in order to execute to the best of our ability in terms of the products we make, the consistency of them, and what we're able to deliver to patients, we felt that it was important to master those operations in each facility, which will allow us to best deliver across the state, will also allow us to best replicate what we're doing as we look to move to other states. And that is a lot of what had to do with the franchising of
Right.
um,
Right.
the retail side, because what we very quickly learned as being a wholesaler and a retailer is that um, kind of we could see how other operators do relative to being their wholesale provider, and we knew what the business was like because we were in the retail business as well, and it's not an easy business to be in. It's highly regulated and it has constraints because of cannabis, and thus we felt that it was more meaningful to us to proliferate a brand experience um, than it was to own a bunch of stores. And so we could help facilitate the success of other people to participate if we just scaled our retail through franchising.
Yeah, and if you have the experience going through it and all the built-in kind of your trial and error, right? Building in all the right processes in place before you launch the franchise model, so that you know what barriers that your franchisees might run into, and have all the answers for that. Is that the kind of the idea?
Yeah, I mean, we're there to provide kind of the operational processes, the understanding of product mix. Our wellness center is a little bit different in that we have a traditional retail side where we sell vitamin supplements, hemp based CBD, health and beauty products, and we also have the dispensary. But in both cases, you need to have kind of a curated product mix. You need to understand who your consumer is, how to speak to them, how to connect with them, and so being able to provide those versions of toolkits for whatever kind of operational area it is of the business, I think is very valuable to somebody so that they can hit the ground running. Because many people can be successful running a business. It just makes it a lot easier if kind of you've given that business in a box, so to speak, versus having to figure it all out. And in a highly regulated industry, there's a lot of boxes to check.
I imagine so. Yeah, yeah, that's great. Thanks for sharing that. So, on the other hand, what are kind of your three inhibitors to growth?
So we have a lot of external forces. So I would say in the world of all of the federal stuff that we deal with, um, all of those constraints that have to deal with banking and capital markets and taxation are large scale inhibitors to the industry for us and for anyone who participates. So that's why I do a lot of the work I do to try and move the needle on these issues because these are just basically business impediments. Um, and they shouldn't really have to do with whether or not you feel good or bad about the category of cannabis. It's that if we're operating legally, we should be able to operate as a traditional business is allowed to in the mainstream. So that's a hurdle for us all to cross. Um, in a medical market, patient growth is a major aspect of our business, right? So we're looking at what we believe the patient growth should be on an annualized basis and making sure that patients in the state are aware that the program is available to them, that they understand how to access it, that the state based systems that allow them to use it are functioning at the best level to make that a seamless process. Um, and then as a third one, I mean, at this moment in time, I don't know that this is an inhibitor, but I think it's something everyone is feeling is just kind of the general economic pangs of inflation and everything, supply chain constraints, everything that's going on in the world right now is obviously impacting us too. We come to it from, a healthcare perspective. So, we're essential and we know that people need their medicine no matter what's going on in the world. One thing we tried to do to help alleviate things as gas prices shifted recently, we partnered with Royal Farms and acquired a large number of gift cards and have done an ongoing promotion where when you spend so much money, you get a gas gift card because as we saw gas hiking up, we kind of think, well, you got to pay your bills, you got to get your gas, you got to get your medicine. We're kind of all in the must haves and we don't want you to forsake one thing for another. So how can we kind of help in the bigger picture?
Right. Interesting. Yeah, and kind of going back to a little bit on the franchise model, just out of curiosity, because Maryland is a medicinal market right now, but in the next couple of years, it looks like the legislation will push through in a couple of years to be more recreational. How do you take that into um, how do you think about that ahead of time, like knowing that that's going to happen? And as you push out your franchise model, are there processes already in place, or that from other markets or where you've seen in other places where it's recreational that you build in, or do you just kind of wait till that happens, if it ever happens, and then you'll come up with the processes then?
So the franchise right now is available in medical and adult use markets. So actually, many of the applicants that we've received are in states that have had medical programs that are now launching adult use, which has created a new window for applications and access. So we're seeing a lot of applicants come through the adult use side at this moment in time. When you talk about Maryland, Maryland would represent a place where we would do conversions at this juncture. So in the spectrum of a franchisee, we could join people at the beginning, right? They want to apply in their state and they want to go through that application process knowing that they'd like to do a franchise. They could have already applied and they have a license that they're awarded or they haven't activated yet and they want to activate it as a franchise. Or they could be operating and say, this is harder than I thought it was. And I'd like the sort of support of that corporate structure that a franchise gives me. So I just have to show up and run my store great every day, and they're doing a lot more of the systems support that I need that sort of drags me down and making this business work. Um, so we're open to kind of finding the franchisees anywhere on that spectrum, and then we're open to both markets because what we're offering is a kind of we're more healthcare minded, right? We're offering cannabis through the lens of we think that there is something therapeutic here for people, and people may buy for any number of reasons. But as a place to come and engage, we're going to be the provider who can have a thoughtful conversation, who can hear what's going on, who can reflect back to you what is the right kind of solution, um, and have kind of a meaningful healthcare conversation, whether that's in adult use or not. Because we do know that even if your state program is adult use, there's still a lot of people who are going in there to use that cannabis, not necessarily recreationally, but for some sort of symptoms or condition that they're dealing with.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, and just to kind of pull back a little bit and ask you a little bit of a broader question. In your opinion, what's most important to a company's growth?
Well, I mean, I'm very much in the bubble of what we're doing. So I would definitely say patience is our most important space. And I say that whether it's quote medicinal or adult use, right? You need to have the population of people who are interested in engaging with your product and understand why what you're offering is differentiated, whether it's the foreign daughter lens that we have that is differentiated in terms of the customer experience, or the Curio Wellness, which is differentiated in terms of the rigor that we take to grow and to process. We're CGMP certified, and we look to make products that are highly differentiated through their targeted formulas, right? So in the cannabis sector, many things are very generic, right? You buy 5 milligrams of this, right? And different people are using it for different reasons. But our goal is to make it much more normalized to the space of targeted things where, if you walk into Walgreens and your stomach hurts, you're going to buy Pepto, and you have a headache, you're going to buy Excedrin. You're not going to buy Theraflu because you got a stomach ache. So, but in cannabis, it's a little bit messier. So that differentiated space that we look to be in is a huge part of where we believe growth is, because we don't think that everyone can have a series of generic products till the end of time. We need to find a way to stand out and to be able for somebody to walk in and say, I'm looking for this solution. And you can very plainly say back to them, this product is that solution.
Yeah, got it. Neat, cool. And how are you identifying your ideal franchisees?
So really it's about kind of the right personality. In some ways I would say more than anything else, because you know we know certain kind of qualities you need to have. I mean, I've said it a few times here. It's highly regulated, right? So you have to be to a certain extent a detail oriented person, because you really have to follow a lot of rules, and there can't be any level of sloppiness there because your license and your business is on the line, right? So so I think detail orientation by the individual is fairly important, but really it's about who can be a very engaging, um, extroverted person. They can lead a great team. They can represent the store in their community. They can run a strong business. Um, because we kind of think of, we think of these stores as a member of the community at large, right? So if some customer comes in and says, "Would you please sponsor our rec softball team?" We want somebody who's going to be that kind of community player. So there's a lot of, I think, people skills in terms of the team that you're leading and in terms of the community that you're part of. That's really important to what we're looking for. With that compliance, there's a huge amount of ethics that we're looking for and a lot of detail orientation. I think those three really kind of champion what we need. And somebody who wants to run that business. This is an owner operator model. So, you have to want to live and breathe your store.
Got it. Yeah, and are you using a lot of digital assets to get that messaging out there for potential franchisee? I imagine you're going very targeted that way. Could you share a little bit of what your kind of campaign is to try to get franchisees in?
Yeah, so when we launched, we did a broader campaign using there's many cannabis-based trade organizations and publishing publications and things like that. So we did a lot of advertising there digitally. We went to two different conferences that occur: the Cannabis Conference put on by Cannabis Business Times, and then the MJ Biz, which is put on by Marijuana Business Daily. We did kind of the traditional booth set up there and things like that, in addition to print and digital ads. But honestly, where we have seen our biggest influx of demand is through earned media. So every time that the franchise or the fund has been covered in the press, that has drawn people to us. We were really fortunate just last week. It was covered in Rolling Stone, completely unsolicited. A writer was doing a piece on social equity opportunities and franchising as an opportunity in the cannabis space, and they very perfectly kind of covered the nature of our business and what we offer,
Awesome.
which was really exciting to see.
Yeah, that's great coverage. Not so bad subscriber base there. Yeah, that's awesome. What do you feel has been, the your number one technique into getting in, new business, whether it's into your retail store or through kind of the starting to grow the franchise model?
Are you asking about products?
Yeah, like what is it? What has been like a technique that you've used to get new business into the, let's say, into the the retail stores?
So I think so we kind of play on all arms of what we offer. So our wellness center in Timonium offers sort of three areas. One is the dispensary, one is what we call the holistic pharmacy. So that's that traditional retail area with vitamin supplements and things like that. And then we have a spa. And so we sort of play on talking to three different audiences and then kind of in a circular way talking to everyone, because the foundations of or the thesis of this store was started with the medical cannabis patient that they were seeking something alternative, so they may be open and interested in other products and services that were complementary. But what it has turned out to be is that we can talk to each group distinctly and draw them in relative to what we're offering in those three lines of business, but we can also talk to them together. And so it gives us a variety of audiences to attract to the store. And a little bit back to that franchise thing in the cannabis space, there's always this concern of the stigma, right? Of, will the community want to have you? And so part of this offering and our ability to advertise ourselves and to draw new people in is that we have things that aren't cannabis, and that makes it very comfortable. So like if one of our estheticians in the spa, is rated in a best of feature, that's a great draw for not only her business but for the store at large, has nothing to do with the cannabis. And sometimes that means that there's just more business for the spa. Sometimes it means that somebody comes and they learn and they get more comfortable with other things that we offer, and there becomes a cross pollination.
Gotcha. Cool. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. Well, we're about out of time. Gosh, I feel like the time went by really quickly. I really appreciate you being here today and sharing your expertise around growth and what Curio's doing to grow the organization. We really appreciate it. If our audience wanted to get more information about Curio, where should they go?
So CurioWellness.com is the website where you can learn all about the wholesale side of our business. So our cultivation, manufacturing, and our leadership team. And then FarDaughter.com is where you can learn about the franchise and the fund. And I would encourage anyone local to come check out the retail experience in person. We're actually in the finishing stages of the remodel as we convert our store from Curio Wellness to Far Daughter. So there'll be a lot of exciting kind of grand opening items to come this summer.
Great. Well, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you sharing your expertise again, and appreciate it a lot. Thank you.
Thank you.
And this has been a growth and business podcast for City Business. Enjoy the rest of your day.